And joining us right now, because, man, we would love baseball memories, new baseball memories this coming summer. And the question is, we're going to get it from MLB Network, as well as Jayson Stark. Joining us right now is none other than from The Athletic and from MLB Network, Jayson Stark joining us right now. How are you, Jayson?
Rich, I'm doing well. It's strange times, but we're all healthy here, so that's good. How are you?
Well, I'd love to see some baseball this summer.
Yeah.
What in the heck's happening right now, Jayson? As you and I are hearing how the NBA's going to move forward, and the NHL has at least a plan on what it would look like when they can figure out the where and when, and the NFL is ready to roll. The question is how. Baseball is so far afield from that. Where is everything right now on that front?
Well, I mean, the vibe I'm getting right now is they're determined to play. And if that means there's no deal, then Rob Manfred will just announce a schedule. I don't know if it'll be 50 games, 52 games, 54 games, 48 games, whatever it is. They'll announce a schedule. They'll announce players should report June, whatever that is. We'll start playing July, whatever it is. That's going to be the deal. All players must report. And look, that's not a good way to go about this. But if that's what it takes, I'm more convinced than ever that that's what would happen. Is they would just require players to play, and they wouldn't have a lot of choice.
So, where do things stand right now, then?
In terms of negotiations?
Yes, sir.
Well, we've seen this movie a million times. I'm tired of watching it, but they're nowhere really. March 26th, they came into agreement. 2.5 months later, and they can no longer agree on what they agreed on, and that just sums up the state of labor relationship in baseball. You've got this situation where owners are saying we're going to lose millions and millions and millions of dollars, even if we play, if there are no fans in the stands. And you have the union saying, we don't believe that. You're going to have to prove it. Well, they're not going to prove it. That's just not going to happen. And so, like the basis of conversation would assume that at least they understand each other's premise. That's not even happening. So, there've been a couple of proposals swatted back and forth. There's just no basis for conversation, and it's really discouraging to watch, especially at this moment in America.
Of course it is, Jayson. So if baseball's saying, okay, we have a stopgap, and that stopgap is a shortened season, and that, from what I read, would pay players 30% of their salaries. And baseball rejected the players saying, here's something twice the size in terms of schedule that will pay us 70% of our salaries. Well, obviously we're seeing what's in the middle. So why can't they get to the middle?
Well, I think the essence of it is this. All right, the union made a proposal on Sunday. I think they knew that the economics would be rejected by Major League Baseball, but there were definitely elements in that proposal that were worth talking about. But in order to talk about it, you'd actually have to have a dialogue, a conversation. And I can think of a million words to describe these negotiations. Conversation is not one of them. If this were a tennis match, it would be like you hitting the ball over the net at me, and me looking at it and going, I'm not swinging at that. MLB has not responded and have, they floated this 50-ish game season idea, but have never proposed it and have said they don't plan to make a counter proposal. That's where we are. I mean, I think ultimately baseball is going to have to make another proposal at some point, but I can't explain to you why they've wasted another week. Because I look at my calendar, July 4th is 4 weeks from tomorrow. 4 weeks.
And that's the date by which an 80-game season would hit? I mean, that's what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
And so when is midnight? Because that's usually when these things have to get done. Jayson Stark here on the Rich Eisen Show. When do you think midnight is, or is even that up for interpretation and debate as well?
How many games are you going to play? I mean,
right.
It's only a 50, 48, 54 game schedule. Then you don't have to start that till August 1st, right? If you really wanted to play a fairly normal half season, starting on July 4th, made a lot of sense. It was never a firm date, but it was a great date to aspire to because you would have the stage to yourself for 3 weeks. And what an opportunity that would have been for this sport, right? We just came through 2 weeks ago. More people watched Tom Brady and Peyton Manning play golf than watched the final round of the PGA. People are so desperate for something to watch. Baseball could have been the only sport playing for 3 weeks, but now they're about out of time to do that. Like I'm hearing July 15th now, but who knows? You should just start doing the math, Rich. 3 weeks spring training, okay, subtract 3 weeks from July the 4th. Then players need time to travel, so that's going to be more time. These teams are going to need time to get their facilities up to these health and safety protocols. That's more time. Players, after they report, would have to be tested and then isolated for a period of time. I mean, like they would have to have a deal done by happy hour, in order to play on July 4th, or else you're looking at a different scenario. But there's not going to be a deal until they actually start talking.
Jayson Stark here on the Rich Eisen Show. And I guess based on, the economics, you can't come up with a schedule, but we can at least come up with what? What at least can we come up with, which is what it would look like? Would it? Do they at least have an idea of what the who would play who and where? I mean, is at least that hammered out, depending on 80 games, 70 games, 60, 50? I mean, do they at least have that somewhere?
Yeah, there was if there was an 82 game season, there was a definite format with that. It would have been like pick the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers would have played every team in the NL West 13 times and all the teams in the AL West 6 times. So 3-game series, home and home. If you're cutting down to 54 or 48 or whatever it is, I there would still be clearly an effort to regionalize as much as possible. That's a lot easier in the East than it is in the West, but that would be the goal, to minimize travel as best they could. MLB now has a number of different schedule modules that they could roll out, but there's so many unanswered questions, and schedule's just one of many.
Okay, Jayson Stark. So then, I wanted an update, and your update here on June 5th, 2020 is that they're not even talking to each other, and everybody's essentially screwing it up. So, what do you think here? I mean, what at some point we will get it. We're at least going to get 50 games, right? That's what we're going to do. And
yes,
right.
I think it'll be somewhere in that range, Rich,
okay,
if there's no agreement. And so what happens if Rob Manfred announces, here's our schedule?
Yep.
First off, the players wouldn't have much choice but to show up and play. If they don't, they'd be staging an illegal strike in the middle of a labor deal. And that's not a good idea. That creates all sorts of legal issues and others. But here's the question. If that's how this gets done, would the players do anything besides play? You think they would talk to people like me on Zoom after games, before games? They're going to meet with sponsors? I don't think they would do anything except play the games. They wouldn't allow an expanded postseason, so that would cost baseball revenue. There would be nothing but acrimony. There would just be baseball games. And then, of course, that would set the stage for the labor deal expiring in a year, and that just looks more and more like labor Armageddon.
Well, what about this, Jayson? What about certain players who are crucial to their team's chances, not saying that we're we're not playing because I'm pissed about the labor agreement. I'm not playing because I'm concerned about my health, so I'm not playing. I mean, how would that be handled?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I wrote about it a week or so ago after Rob Manfred said on CNN that they wouldn't force anybody to play who didn't feel safe playing. And this should be part of the negotiations. And I think if it were, you'd have three different classes of players. You'd have, first off, a group of players who would fall under high risk. They're cancer survivors, or they've had a heart issue, or they have diabetes, whatever. You know, they would clearly be at risk. And I think those players would have the right to opt out and get full salary and service time. I think they would almost have to do that. But then the other two categories are very problematic. One is, all right, you're not high risk, but you have a family member who's high risk. And that would seem like it would fall under the same category, but how are we defining family member? Suppose you just had aging parents, grandparents, whatever, living with you who would be high risk. Would that be enough to qualify? And then the union would want that third category of player to be just somebody who says, we don't feel comfortable playing. What the union proposed over the weekend for that player was, all right, that player wouldn't get paid, but would get full service time. So hold on 1 minute. You think the Dodgers would be in favor of Mookie Betts sitting out the season and then he becomes a free agent?
No way.
What a fun negotiation that would be. So it would be best if this were negotiated out. I'm guessing if it's just Rob Manfred announcing here's the schedule, they would say high-risk players fall under one category. Everybody else has to play.
What a hot mess, Jayson Stark, man. I hope everybody pulls this thing together because you're right. 3 weeks of just like baseball and seeing it, and then there's the whole issue of protocols and figuring out. I mean, my gosh, I hope it can get figured out, and I appreciate you joining me to hash it out, Jayson. Thank you. I hope you're well.
Yeah, you and me both, Rich. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's Jayson Stark at JaysonST on Twitter. I follow him. You should too. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.